Uhuru! Uhuru, everyone, and welcome to the monthly Uhuru Solidarity Movement web event, which is part of the Black Power Blueprint Live Tuesday night webinars, raising resources and reparations for the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis, Missouri. The Uhuru Solidarity Movement raises white reparations to African people under the leadership of the African working class. And the phase 2 goal of Black Power Blueprint is $50,000, and we are at $45,411. And that is due to all of you watching who have continuously contributed. Really want to appreciate all of you and to welcome our new viewers. I am Jackson Hollingsworth, National Secretary of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the organization of white people under the leadership of the Movement for the Liberation of Africa and African People here and around the world, led by the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So we salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And we fight for white people's reparations to African people and white solidarity with Black power. And we say Uhuru as it means freedom in Swahili. The African People's Party uses it as an affirmation, as a salute, to keep freedom on our minds always. And so we, under the leadership of the party, use that in solidarity, Uhuru. And this Pride Month, we from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, we are under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. This is Pride Month, and this is why we're holding this webinar. The party is absolutely opposed to the oppression of anyone, to oppression in any form, and has always been so. We recognize and despise the oppression of LGBT people, of SGI people, of same-gender loving people, of gender and sexuality non-conforming African people in this country and around the world under the social system. And what we have to find is the way that this can be truly solved. We have to get to the root of the problem. And we want to look at this through the eyes of the African working class. What is the relationship of white people to this, including white LGBTQIA people? We want a principled stance of genuine solidarity with oppressed peoples. We don't want our rights at the expense of the African community. And we have the honor of having with us tonight for this webinar, Secretary General of the African People's Socialist Party, Gazi Kodzo. Secretary General Gazi Kodzo, you are a renowned public figure, gender and sexuality non-conforming, internet personality, and well-respected leader in the struggle for African liberation. And so really want to appreciate you for being on this webinar tonight with us. And before we begin, I want to salute the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Ona Zane Yeshitela, who leads the Black Power Blueprint African Self-Determination Project in St. Louis, Missouri, and of course salute Secretary General Gazi Kodzo. I salute Chairwoman Hess of the African People's Solidarity Committee, who is with us tonight. The African People's Solidarity Committee is the cadre organization of white people under the party's leadership. And so I really want to appreciate Chairwoman Penny for being on this tonight, and also to appreciate also a member of the APSC and the National Chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Jesse Neville. I want to appreciate Mads Ambrose, who is also on this webinar tonight, tuning in from Portland, or joining us from Portland, who is the Reparations Challenge. Mads is the Reparations Challenge Coordinator of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So I really want to thank them for being on tonight, Uhuru. So this web event is going to serve to highlight the contradictions in the white LGBTQIA community and how genuine solidarity through reparations with the Black Power Blueprint can be attained. Our solidarity comes in the form of reparations from the white community to African people. The Black Power Blueprint is African-led economic development project for self-determination in St. Louis, Missouri, and around the world, and for Black community control of food, clothing, housing, and commerce. So this includes the beautiful new Uhuru House Community Center in St. Louis, Missouri, which is phase 1 of the Black Power Blueprint fundraising campaign. So I really want to appreciate everyone for that is a huge victory. And due to everyone who contributed to that, many of whom are watching right now, really want to appreciate you. And of course, to the leadership of Deputy Chairwoman Zanae Ishatella under the vision of Chairman Amali Ishatella. And we're now in phase 2 of that, having torn down the 2 condemned buildings across the street from the new Uhuru House for the One Africa, One Nation Marketplace and the Gary Brooks Community Garden. That is extremely exciting. We are well on our way into phase 2. And then after that will be phase 3 with Uhuru Foods and Pies, Uhuru Bakery and Cafe, Uhuru Jiko Commercial Kitchen for African people to form their own businesses, and the African Liberation Workforce Program, which will provide training and employment to recently incarcerated African people. All of these programs contributing to African liberation. So I really want to call on everyone watching to go to ucaring.com/blackpowerblueprint to support the Black Power Blueprint. No amount is too small or too big. And so I really want to encourage everyone throughout this webinar, go to ucaring.com/blackpowerblueprint, share, like, comment, and help us reach our goal of $1,000 tonight, Uhuru. So I want to open it up to Mads Ambrose, who is tuning in from Portland, Mads, you are a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and as a queer and non-binary white person, I want to ask, why are you in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and why are you opposed to the LGBT movement as it is right now, the gay rights organizations, different queer activist groups? Why do you feel it is in your interest as a queer and non-binary white person to be in solidarity with African people and active in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement?
Uhuru. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. I'm really honored. And actually, for many years, I was a part of gay and queer and feminist activism before I learned about the Uhuru movement and African internationalism. I was doing lots of activism in Oklahoma, where I was living at the time around creating queer community in a town that had no gay bars and where my LGBTQIA friends were being harassed and assaulted. So we had to carve out space for ourselves and did a lot of activism just around gathering queer people together. And I was also studying gender studies and queer theory in school and was an activist for reproductive justice, which is access to health care surrounding family planning. And we went to the Capitol to fight against certain bills, barring access to abortion, to not pass, talk to our legislators, and work to expose fake crisis pregnancy centers posing as abortion clinics. And I was taught by doing this activism that the conferences that I went to, that the main contradiction for all oppression was a lack of reproductive justice, and that this is what affects our lives. And just about 3 years ago, I learned about African internationalism by being exposed to Secretary General Ghazi Kodzo's internet presence, and salute to Secretary General Ghazi Kodzo, because he is how I came to the movement. And I came to understand that what is at the root of my need as a white queer person to carve out space in Oklahoma was because of colonialism, ultimately, and that the religious-based reasons why we as queer people are not accepted into society in a heavily religious state like Oklahoma is because of Christianity, which was spread throughout the world with colonialism as a tool to oppress women, homosexuality, transgenderism. And I began to understand that the reasons why the reproductive justice issues I was fighting for disproportionately affected Black and brown people was because of colonialism. And that the reason why gender nonconforming Africans and other colonized people are more likely to experience homelessness and poverty and death is because of colonialism, and that still exists today. and reproductive justice and queer issues can't be solved until these colonial contradictions are overturned. And so salute to African internationalism and Chairman Omali Yeshitela for really including that analysis for LGBTQIA people and for white people in general too. And that African internationalism is about kind of understanding the truth and history of colonialism and its effects on the world through the eyes of the colonized, and that the root of all oppression lies in colonialism. So that means that we know the origins of homophobia, transphobia, sexism, queerphobia, and other things like that affect us even as white sexuality and gender nonconforming people is still colonialism. And what perpetuates it is white power. And I learned through African internationalism that the very creation of marriage originated in Europe during feudalism. And the reasons why Europe assaulted Africa was most Europeans were living in pure filth and had lack of resources on barren land, and that any land with any resources was owned by nobility and the ruling class, and that white people invented the concept of private property, and land and resources were passed down through genetics. So they had to create the nuclear family to pass on that capital, therefore had to create a legal binding contract called marriage, which, by the way, was created the possession and objectification of women and children, but also reaffirmed the binary of man and woman. And so when Europe assaulted Africa and enslaved African people, made itself rich and created capital for themselves at the expense of others, which is capitalism. And if you couldn't contribute to capitalism because you did not participate in marriage or the reproduction of children, you were ostracized. So not only are we talking about the beginnings of the definitions between man and woman, and homosexual and heterosexual, but also any intersex or asexual people were useless to the system because they couldn't reproduce, which is why they are included even in LGBTQIA. But all of us white people sit on the pedestal of oppression because the main contradiction is the colonial relationship between the oppressor and the oppressed nation. And it doesn't mean that there aren't contradictions in the oppressor nation, but that the common oppressor is white power. And we see the opportunism of white-led movements that repeat the colonial history of stealing goods and material goods to unite for equal rights as the oppressor. Every movement led by white people has fought to make life better for that sector of the white population and not overturn the social system, but for that system to be nicer to that sector. That's why, we see so many rich white gay men, and they're some of the wealthiest people, is they've been allotted that access. And genuine liberation of LGBTQIA white people is not in the system, but in overturning it under the leadership of colonized people, because the main contradiction is colonialism. And we should be offended by the assumption that we want to participate in the system, that we can be bought off, that we want to go kill colonized people and children and fight imperialist wars in the military, or be accepted in the police force with a rainbow flag on a cop car. It is in our interest to destroy capitalism under the leadership of colonized people because it is entirely created by colonialism, the root of our oppression. And why we need to be under the leadership of the African poor and working class is our relationship to Black people is still parasitic and violent. And we need to end our parasitic relationship to African people. We know we steal their culture. We know we steal their language, their dance forms, and we call it queer culture. Drag queens literally dress in blackface and mimic African women. And what's known as queer culture is Black culture. And being completely consumed by our gender and sexuality identities, that's why we have to have gayborhoods and gay bars. In the first place is because of the colonial contradiction that's ostracizing us from white communities, and a sign of white power. It's a sign of white power separating us from regular society. And all of this is at the expense of African people. And we know we start gentrification and we make it comfortable for white society to enter into an African neighborhood. And we steal their culture, stamp it as queer to make it more accessible to white people. And African people experience the genocide through this gentrification. But then, we get kicked out of our neighborhoods, and it doesn't serve us either. And I live in Portland, and where I am, it's getting so expensive to live, and everyone's talking about gentrification, and hardly anyone I know has been able to keep their housing. But it wasn't a housing crisis until it started affecting white people. There was a vast, big economic center of African people in Portland, and that's been completely erased. And we must recognize, white queer people, LGBTQIA people, must recognize our role as colonizers. It won't end. The gentrification won't end until we'll continue. We can move somewhere else and take over. Go to a neighborhood because it's cheap, because there's colonized people living there, and then eventually we'll get kicked out again. The cycle will continue until we overturn this system and overturn our relationship with African people. And we have principled solidarity. And, I moved to Portland, Oregon from Oklahoma because I was escaping harassment and abuse. And I knew I could live comfortably as a white queer person in Portland, but no African person can be comfortable or escape abuse anywhere they are around the world. And the Black Power Blueprint resists the wave of gentrification happening in St. Louis right now. And so support the Black Power Blueprint and fight gentrification, fighting gentrification, and contribute at youcaring.com/Black Power Blueprint. And, it's not that that white LGBTQIA people don't experience, that we don't suffer on the pedestal, or that we're denying the fact that we experience this. So many of my friends and community are suffering from alcoholism and substance abuse and suicide. And it's just to escape this reality. And the reality that we live in has been created by colonialism. And we must recognize our identity as colonizer, who benefits off the oppression of African and indigenous and all colonized people. It's also part of our reality. And just because I'm queer and non-binary doesn't mean that I experience the same oppression that gender and sexually non-conforming Africans face. And I actually benefit off of their oppression. And that's why we say there's no such thing as queer people in general, as trans people in general, as non-binary people in general. And this is the first Pride that I personally won't be celebrating since I came out as queer, because the contradictions that the colonized and African trans women and gender nonconforming people that spurred the reason why we have Pride is Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, and their contradictions still to this day haven't been solved. They remained homeless throughout their whole life without hardly any resources, and Marsha P. Johnson's murder was covered up by police as a suicide. But we as gay people use the revolt as a token to have equal rights as oppressors, to be in the military, to be in the police force, to enter into the very institution that caused our oppression, marriage. But it's not just about the leaders of Stonewall. It is about the lives and the right of every African person to have self-determination and power over their own lives. And gay liberation also stole the narrative of an anti-colonial uprising, the Stonewall. So the language, the tactics, gay liberation came after Black liberation, gay power after Black power, and this in the 1960s. And Black liberation sparked and created a vocabulary for sectors of white society to recognize their oppression and be able to even fight for that, but extracted what we wanted from them and then left Black power and Black liberation and all that whole concept behind. And for Pride Month all over the world this month and throughout the year, there's different prides, different months throughout the world. LGBTQIA people will be celebrating in the streets and hugging and dancing with the police and having parades, while, you know, Black trans women and all African people are suffering at the hands of the state and the US government. And we can unite with African people gaining power over their own lives. And we can have material solidarity with Black power in the form of reparations, so we can return the resources that were stolen by not only my ancestors, but my white queer community to this day. And I have no pride in genocide. I won't be proud of white LGBTQIA people until all of us unite with Black power, which means paying reparations and being under the leadership of the Black working class, not just inviting more Black people to our white-led movements or having fights with racist trolls on the internet or dating Black people or sticking Black Lives Matter signs in our front yard of the apartment that like used to be an African family's home just literally a few months ago, that, you know. And it's about joining the Uhuru Solidarity movement and accepting this really beautiful offering to unite with Black power to end all oppression. So please give to the Black Power Blueprint. It is the way we can have genuine solidarity. That is the definition that the African People's Socialist Party has come up with. So, Uhuru.
Thank you, Mads Ambrose, chair of the Reparations Challenge Committee under the Uhuru Solidarity Movement from Portland. Really want to appreciate that powerful presentation, extremely powerful. So I really want to thank you for that political education that you laid forth, and to calling on people to contribute to the Black Power Blueprint, to pay reparations, to give resources at youcaring.com/blackpowerblueprint. And I want to thank our donors, our supporters. Has anything come in from the website?
Yes. We just want to, well, first of all, I want to salute Mads. What an amazing presentation. I really, that was brilliant, Mads. And, it was powerful. And how can somebody not be won to that? You laid it all out there, and you did so just point by point. And it's really powerful to understand it and see how the liberation, quote unquote, of white people can only happen in solidarity and paying reparations to African people, because we have sat on the pedestal of the oppression of African people, and that, through this relationship under the leadership of the African working class organized in the African People's Socialist Party, we have the ability to solve the problems that we face, not ourselves at the expense of anybody else, not ourselves getting rights while African people are still gunned down by the police every day, but in unity with the struggle of African people and the right of African people to their land, of Africa, the continent of Africa, and to all the stolen resources going back to them in the form of reparations. So, again, I want to salute you, Comrade Mads, out there in Portland, Oregon. And we have some powerful donations here, some expressions of reparations. One from our wonderful comrade, Bobby Wittenberg. Really nice to see your stand, Comrade Bobby, who's usually here with us in the room, but can't be here tonight. But Bobby writes, and he gave $100, and he writes, Uhuru, it was so amazing to see the buildings come down to clear the way for One Africa, One Nation Marketplace. Salute Chairman Omali Ishitela, VC Ona Ishitela, the APSP, the Black Power Blueprint. All white people owe reparations. Let's return those resources.
Yes.
Uhuru. And there was $20 from Jeremy Blackbeard, and he says, Uhuru, victory to African internationalism.
Uhuru.
And, just to say that what Bobby Wittenberg was talking about was that this past week, the buildings that were demolished, well, it's in the process right now of being demolished to make way. There were condemned buildings across the street from the Uhuru House, which was so beautifully renovated as the star piece of the Black Power blueprint in St. Louis at 4101 West Florissant. And across the street were two buildings that were condemned that needed to come down so that they can pave the way for the One Africa, One Nation marketplace, which will bring the African community together for its own community market every week. So this has been a great victory, and that happened in part from the solidarity and the support and the reparations and the support and donations from people around the world into our ucaring.com/Black Power Blueprint, which has raised the original goal of $45,000. But we can't stop there. Mm-hmm. We're going to go for a few more weeks, and we want to get to $50,000. This is really critical. Imperialism never stops exploiting and ripping off the resources of African people and the people on planet Earth. Never. 24/7 is going on. And if we stand in solidarity, then we have to be part of returning and stopping that parasitic flow of resources into the hands of white power and into ourselves, our own hands, and turning back over to the African revolution, so that African people can be free, that African people can define their own future, can enjoy their own resources, can have power and define their lives and their own laws and everything that benefits the community, not living, as victims of colonialism in the society. So we reject that, and we call for you to go to ucaring.com/Black Power Blueprint.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny. Really want to unite with that statement and to appreciate Bobby and Jeremy, and to encourage everyone to go to ucaring.com/Black Power Blueprint and to share this video and tell people about this amazing project of the Black Power Blueprint, and for them to go to ucaring.com/Black Power Blueprint. So now I want to turn over to a very important interview with our special guest, Secretary General Gazi Kodzo of the African People's Socialist Party, a well-known internet persona and spokesperson of African liberation, including gender and sexuality non-conforming Africans. Uhuru, SG Ghazi.
Uhuru.
First of all, can you tell us about yourself, SG Ghazi, as a gender and sexuality non-conforming African? What role did that play in the development of your political consciousness?
Uhuru, thank you for that question, Jackson. And just also want to give Uhuru and salute to Comrade Mads for that great political education and summation. Really exposing the parasitic relationship that all colonizers have with the colonized nation, and doesn't matter if you are, wrapped in a rainbow flag or LGBTQIA, whatever it is. It's all based on the oppression of African people, and like Mads laid out, and Chairman has written already, is that it was the liberation of it was the African liberation, which gave birth and rise to, the liberation of all these different sectors of the white community, the colonized community. It's the African, it's the Black Power movement that got the white woman out of the kitchen and got the, gay man out of the closet and all these things. And you even see now this whole transgender movement coming after, the murder of Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin and all of these things, the white trans movement. But a little about me, I guess, obviously, I'm gender and sexuality non-conforming African, I guess some people say homosexual. But and I guess as what that means for me politically, when I was coming into political consciousness and understand a lot of the generations of African people recently being sparked during the Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown murders, specifically the Mike Brown murder, because it was the spark of the resistance of the African poor working class on the ground fighting the police, and just watching that and seeing that and understanding that was deep-rooted in me more than anything else that I was being tried to organize in under any kind of GLAAD organization, or being mad at Chick-fil-A because they're saying we can't get married, or being mad at a certain celebrity because they said, the F word or something like that, that this was at the core of my existence. What shook my entire world was this colonial state violence against African people, that I knew that we all African people had targets on our backs. And, you know, during that time, it was, I think it was a little bit before or after that, you know, it was legal for gays to get, it was after that Obama made it legal for like gays to get married. And I remember there was like this celebration, and I wrote this quote, and I didn't think it was going to be anything, but I wrote this thing on Tumblr, and I said, you know, white gay men can now walk down the aisle, but African people still can't walk down the street, you know, without being murdered by the police. And, you know, that went like viral, and a lot of people understood. And it's like, why are you taking this win from us? And all this other kind of stuff. And it's like, you may not even live long enough to get to a freaking aisle. And then what does an aisle look like for us, you know? And during living under colonialism and all these kinds of things, and even trying to replicate what a marriage is. And then when, you know, marriage has been exposed as this, you know, capitalist tool just to, you know, produce and reproduce, you know, the oppression of African colonized people, then what does that mean for us to try to replicate or clone that, you know? And just to understand what that even means to as an African. But, you know, coming into that consciousness and wanting to be a part of the revolution, understanding that that was the only solution, is that we have to overturn this whole thing, and we have to lead it, you know, the African working class, and, you know, really stressing to figure out what it was for us to be free, what it would take for us to be free, and seeing, you know, Chairman Amalia Shatella and the Uhuru movement. And before, you know, I even met Chairman, I used to do this thing, girl. So like I used to go online, right? And they used to have like video, what do they call them? Online radio things. What do they call those?
A podcast?
Blog talk. No, blog talk. It wasn't that advanced, okay? It was a blog talk radio. And they had these blog talk radios where they would be talking, and like the subject would be about me and like my videos, because I guess it was like really a shocker to see like an effeminate, like black homosexual talking about like, you know, we need to get free, you know, F these white folks, F white power, come on, y'all. Like, you know, I guess it was like a real shocker. So a lot of people were having conversations about it. And I used to listen in, Cheryl. I used to listen into these conversations. They didn't know I was on the air. Like, listen, you dial the number, you just listen. And I'd be listening, and I listened to probably like 5 or 6 of them, and they didn't know I was listening, right? Kind of narcissistic. But each and every one of them, and I swear to like everything around me, I don't believe in high power, but anyways, other than the NCC. But each and everything around me, like every time I clocked in, they all said, well, if he's going to join an organization, the only one that's going to take him is the Uhuru movement. All of them said that. Each and every one of them said that. And I was like, you know, I know the Uhuru movement, and like, they're the only ones that going to take me. Why are they the only one? Nobody else want me. And I was just like, but it was crazy because they understood that, one, what they knew what I wanted, which was obviously he wants, you know, liberation, revolution, a serious organization. And they knew that the only organization that was talking revolution, liberation, and all of these things, and accepted the participation of all sectors of the African nation, you know, was the Uhuru movement. And it was the Uhuru movement. And it was like, dang, like, I just listened to 5 different blog talks, and they all saying the Uhuru movement is the only one's going to take me. Yes, I ain't got a choice, you know what I mean? But it was powerful to know that. You know, it was powerful that you know, African people knew that. That was the place to go. And when I, you know, learned about it, I was like, you know, when you find out that's your only option, you're like, oh, Lord, I hope it's a good option. You know what I mean? When it's your only option, it's usually not the good option for African people. You know what I mean? That's usually the store brand. You know, that's usually the one that's, you know, the real hard and crunchy, real stale. But, you know, when doing my research for the Uhuru movement, it's like, hey, this is the best thing out there, and they want me? Damn! You know, and then understanding that African internationalism is not some opportunistic thing. It's not something that wants to oppress people for being different. It's an organization. African internationalism is, you know, an ideology, and the Uhuru movement is a movement that the only interest we have in oppressing anyone is the oppression of the oppressor. Yep. You know, and of course, the best movement out there has come to this realization. Of course, the best movement out there wants me to participate and doesn't give a damn about who I sleep with and all this other kind of stuff, you know. And so I was so thankful, you know, to join this movement and to be, you know, to see that they were serious. It wasn't just, you know, bumping their gums and stuff like that, that this movement had everything. I saw Chairman, and I had to go to we didn't have the Burning Spear at that time. We had a Uhuru News Uhuru.com. I went to uhurunews.com to watch the Black People's Grand Jury. First of all, the Black People's Grand Jury was mind-blowing to me because it was like, all these people are like, we have to worry about what's going on over here. What are they going to say? What are they going to say? And it's like, as African people, we knew what they were going to say. We knew what that jury was going to say about Mike Brown. We knew they were going to let us off, but we have to create our own justice system. We have to create, symbols of our own, of being self-determined, of being self-governing. What does that look like for African people? And giving us something to actually fight for. So when I heard that it was this, I was like telling everybody, stop watching that live feed of that crap. We already seen that with Trayvon Martin. Let's watch our own. Let's invest in our own. And let's fight for our own. Let's fight for when we say it is what it is, then we need to do to make sure we need to do to build to get justice and what that looks for us, and not only that they were having a Black People's Grand Jury, but to watch it, you went to uhurunews.com. You know what I mean? It's like, it wasn't just this act of self-determination and, it's on NBC or MSNBC or anything like that. We had our own apparatus, our own media source. So it was like all you were seeing was self-determination. That's the whole thing from the way you saw it. The chairman gets up, the people are getting up and they're talking into mics that say Uhuru on it. So the mics is Uhuru. Everything was just boom, 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 boom. And it's like, by the burning spear. So you can it's like, okay, dang, like everything, even the production company of behind the books and everything was like, Uhuru, Uhuru. You saw advertisements on the side was Uhuru t-shirts and hoodies and everything. It was like, wow, we don't have to do it. It's already been done. We just got to grow it. You know what I mean? We don't have to build it. It's already been done. Now we just have to participate and grow it. And I knew that spoke to me more than GLAAD. I knew that meant more to me more than fighting for a rainbow flag. I knew that meant more to me than RuPaul's Drag Race. I knew that meant something to me and my people and all of my people. And it was completely understood, the way, shout out to Chairman, because when he gives his, PEs and summations and he speaks, it's no doubt that we are all included. There's no doubt that we are all included in this. It's no doubt that this is for all of us, and just such a salute to Chairman Omale Yeshitela. And like when I first, joined the party and I came in, I was so excited because I was like, they want me and I want them. And I saw that on social media, there was this viral attack being put on the party for accepting me. For the African Socialist Party for accepting me and letting me join. And it was just this horrific attack. And I saw all these comments and everything against this beautiful movement that I've been getting to know from, I met the chairman in Ferguson. I came to the Uhuru House. I saw the gym. I saw the connection. I saw the future. I saw so much beauty and still do to this day, even more every day. But what this movement means for African people, how precious this movement is, and how just amazing it is, how there's nothing else on the face of the planet there is. And we've made it through with the leadership of Chairman Omale Yeshitela against counterinsurgency, the most vicious attack you can ever know against a revolutionary movement, that it made it through this. And now to see that this slander campaign was coming on. And at that time I thought, oh my gosh, this is what I brought on to the movement. And child, I got very emotional and I locked myself in the bathroom and cried. Yes, I did. So I was like really emotional. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm bringing this to this movement. And Chairman was knocking on the door and I was like, what is it? I need to go. I don't want to bring this to you. Y'all are a mess and I can't believe I'm bringing all this slander to you. And Chairman just laughed. He was like, what are you talking about? This is great. It's time for us to have these struggles. Like, this is what we want. This is perfect. Who cares? Like, yes, bring it on. And just laughing. He was happy about this thing that I'm like petrified about, which happens all the time. But I was like, what? And it's just like, it was just so amazing that, Chairman is just so used to being struggling to be on the right side of the question and understanding what that means and knowing that sometimes that comes with attacks and all these things, but we struggle to be on the right side of the question, even with this question. And, as a gender and sexual and non-conforming African, you're so used to being isolated. You're so used to it that minuscule things become accepting. So if the movement decided, listen, Ghazi, we can't handle all this. This is happening. So you got to go somewhere. You got to be in secret and be with us. I've been fine with it. Like TBH, I've been fine with it because I just want to be free. So I don't fuck about it. Like I just want to be free at that point. But Chairman understood, like, no, it's way more than just that. That it has to be out there and vibrant and in your face. That we are accepting of all sectors of the African nation, as long as you are siding with the oppressed people and want liberation for African people. and we don't care what that brings on. It was the same stance Chairman had with Obama, same stance Chairman had with Jesse Jackson, same stance Chairman has had all down the line when all this attacks we put on the movement, but we have to be on the right side. The same stance Chairman has and the party has with the leadership of African women. It's just boom, boom, this is who we are. We don't give a fuck. This is what it is. This is what it is. This is what it is. And that's what you want to be about. You don't want to be about something that's wishy-washy and wants to be where the popular is and da-da-da. We want to be on the right side of the question. And it's not even this personal thing of like, it's not even this charity shit. You know what I mean? This thing of like, we care for you, we love you, da-da-da. It's like, no, we want to be on the right side of the question. This is what it is. So even if we do have feelings about what y'all doing is nasty, something like that, like, screw that. We need liberation. We need all hands on deck. We don't have any interest in oppressing anyone but the oppressor. And that's it. And it's a clear line. And, we lost, branches because of that, because of that stance. And Chairman was very clear about it. This is the way we're going, And so it just has meant so much to me, but more importantly to a sector of the African nation that we don't even get to see that in our own family. You know what I mean? We don't get to see that in our own community, but we get to see it in the African People's Socialist Party, which is the leading front of the revolution, which means we're going to see it in the future. So I just really appreciate the party for even producing my unity with GSMA Africans. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, you experience being isolated so much, any little crumb becomes so appreciative. And Chairman said, no, F that. You want the whole cake. Like, this all is yours. All of Africa is yours. All of this resources are yours. Leadership position is yours. All of this is y'all's too. As long as we struggle to stay on the right side of the question, we participate in the revolution. So he even won me to a better understanding and unity with my own, sector of the African nation. And still to this day, developing that unity and what that looks like and what my responsibilities to that means. You know what I mean? And just appreciate Chairman for creating that entryway for, GSMA people, because if he didn't say yes, there would be no yeses. There still are no yeses to this day. There isn't. We have to join white-led shit. This is the only thing we have. And thank God it's the only thing we have. We ain't got no other shit that wants to give us crumbs. Like, I'm glad they all say hell no. Continue to say hell no. So the road to Uhuru continues to bright light, okay? And it doesn't have no different avenues. This is the only road we got, and I'm so grateful it's the only road we got, because we don't have to be confused into no other BS, Because other than that, we only have GLAD and all these other things to be one to. So I'm just so appreciative of this movement and of Chairman Amalia Shatella, just struggling always being on the right side of the question, always being principled, always showing what a real upstanding African is, and embarking in us as GSMA people, a confidence that we were never supposed to have in capitalism. We were never supposed to have in colonialism and imperialism. We were never supposed to have it, ever. And it is here. It is here, and it is bright, and he shows it every day. Every newspaper with my homo face on there, all the time, with the participation of, African trans people and all these kinds of things, that he is giving us this avenue and allowing us to show the nation that, we are African, we are colonized, we are oppressed, and we can be revolutionaries too. So I'm just so appreciative of that. And that's what, me being GSMA means. And when the party created GSMA, it's rooted in revolution. It's rooted in the liberation of African people. It's rooted in socialism. It's rooted in communism. It's rooted in the leadership of the African working class. It has to be, because everything else that identifies us wins us to imperialism. Everything from the queer, from the LGBTQ, from the trans, all that wins us to imperialism. They want to put somebody up like Caitlyn Jenner, and it's just so destructive of what that, we're going to talk about it more, but it's so destructive. What trans is being identified for is, one, it's destructive to all trans people, but it's specifically African colonized trans people who don't have the same amount of resources and have to be subdued to things that, shorten our lifespan even more beyond just being, colonized. That we'll get to talk about more. But I hope I answered your question, Sean.
Definitely. Yeah, I really want to appreciate that. A really thorough answer and just incredibly powerful. And I want to ask in terms of what you said we'll be talking more about, what are some of the realities that reflect the conditions of gender and sexuality non-conforming Africans, or GSMA? For example, we know that the AIDS contradiction has been different for white people than for African people. And can you discuss that?
Yeah, it's just, I saw this documentary recently. It's called Mirror Mirror, which y'all should watch. It's called Mirror Mirror, and it's about an African trans woman, and she got HIV, and died of AIDS in the movie. It was like her last days that she wanted documented, and it was really crazy because, like, it wasn't really crazy. It's really what we experienced, because while she was preparing for her own death, she was assisting others who were dying and raising resources for ones who have already died. She was a performer. So her last days, she was performing to raise resources for other funerals, and couldn't even raise resources for herself, and just would hope when she died that they would start to perform. And they were performing in, it's crazy because, like, when they were raising the resources at these clubs, right? And Penny knows, because she used to party back in the day and live in New York. But there was this whole thing of cleaning up New York, right, Penny? And because there was a lot of gay bars, there was a lot of gay bars, there was a lot of bars, a lot of entertainment, lots of, what they call seedy, lots of, the prostitution, all that kind of stuff that was going on in certain parts of New York that they wanted to clean up and remove and make into tourist town, right? And in that process, though, especially African GSMA people, that was the way that we produced our resources, from performing at these clubs, from dancing at these clubs, from being bartenders at these clubs, from, even the sex work that was being done. All these kinds of things were main ways of us gaining resources. But because now the white ruling class want to, clean it up, basically take Africans out of it and the economy, which they created by destroying our ability to have a way of gaining resources in an upstanding way, was to push us to these levels. And quiet as it's kept, it's white, men who are the number one, tricks and daddies of, GSMA sex workers or whatever. So it's an economy that is literally there to serve them. But anyways, during this cleaning and the gentrification of that, it was becoming harder for them to gain resources to get resources to die with dignity. You know what I mean? So on top of now, it's imperialism and capitalism and white power that has infected us with HIV and AIDS. And now we want to perform. We have to perform to gain resources for funerals. But now there's less and less people coming to the funerals because white power is gentrifying that community, and cleaning it up with the assistance of white gays and LGBTQs that see it as seedy and bad or whatever like that. And they want to wipe out, the black and indigenous drag queens to produce them with white ones, and take that out and be more family friendly for the white, straight people or whatever it is. But it was just like all these different barrage of attacks being done to this African trans woman. Of course, she didn't have African internationalism to sum it up, but it was so easy to see. And at the same time, her rent is rising because of gentrification. So like each and every way she was being attacked for being colonized, for being an African, you know what I mean? Beyond the trans thing was being African, and the trans thing, what that does is just isolates you from, your community, where it makes it even harder for you to have access to resources, because now even the, quarters and pennies in Big Mama's purse, you are not welcome to, you know what I mean? So now you are even more in this kind of dire situation. But, she was in this situation. She's doing the sex work, and while doing the sex work, being pumped with all kinds of different things to make her body look a certain way, to try to be this trans woman that capitalism is saying, to be trans, you have to go through these surgeries, you have to purchase these kinds of things to be what what it means to be a woman, which we've designed what it means to be a woman, and it's going to cost you a pretty coin. And now she has to do this sex work to do all these kinds of things. Can't afford the high grade silicone and stuff, so has to get these crazy things in her body, and then it's just crazy. So it goes round and round and round and round and round of colonialism. And the one thing that leads us out of all of that is African internationalism. The one thing that leads us all of that is the Uhuru movement. One thing that's out of all of that is the Black Power Blueprint and the African People's Socialist Party. And when I was first, coming out or coming into realization that I was like a homosexual, whatever like that, I guess I was a late bloomer child because it was in high school or whatever. I went to, okay, so listen. So I moved from Atlanta to Texas for high school, and I went to this high school, whatever. And in Texas, football is a very big sport. So they pump these boys up with all kinds of chemicals, with this hamburgers and stuff, the hormones. So they be growing real good. And, and I seen these men, and I'm like, I'm in high school. These some grown ass men in this high school, okay? I don't know what they put in them burgers, but they were raw. And I was like, oh my God, this is pleasant. And I was just like, I like this. Why do I like this? And I'm just asking people like, I like this. I really like this. I liked it. But I was just wondering, wow, what's going on? And I found out, oh, you're homosexual. Oh my God. So I went on Yahoo Chat, which was popping at the time. We didn't have no Facebook. We had a Yahoo Chat room. And I went to a little Yahoo Chat room. And it was my first time letting people, I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to come out. And it was the first time I said it out loud. My father was at work. And I was like, okay, I'm going to type it. Oh, here we go. And it was like, gay, black. And I lied about my age. And I was really like, 14. But I was like, 18. And I was like, Texas. And I was like, here we go. And I was like, send. And it went up there. And I was like, oh, I said it. Oh, look at me. And I said it. And like literally the first comment that responded was like, from this white gay boy. I assume he was like, you couldn't tell back in the day. Back in the day on the internet, you could be whoever the hell you wanted to be. Now you got to be yourself. It's boring. But, he wrote and he said, wow, you're black and gay. He was like, you might as well commit suicide. Yes. And shout out to him because he told me like shit is real. He was telling me like life is gonna be fucked up for you, and he was right. He was right. I appreciate you. Tell me the truth. But not commit suicide though. I had to commit class suicide. But he was just saying like it's really fucked up out here. To be African and to be GSMA and stuff like that. But just with that was like it was my real introduction to this life. And starting to see that and seeing, friends who caught, HIV and didn't want to put it out into the community because they were afraid of being, shunned. And when you're already shunned because, your parents find out who you are and they kick you out and stuff like that. And now you found this community of other Africans who have been isolated. Now you're being threatened to be isolated from them for coming out again for this disease that everything's telling you that you caught the disease. Your responsibility. You should be held accountable. Like you should commit a self-criticism for catching HIV and AIDS, not the motherfuckers that actually created and invented HIV and AIDS and pushed it in your community, and you actually had no choice but to get it. You know what I mean? Because it's an attack. Like it's like people forcing African and colonized people to commit a self-criticism for being attacked from HIV and AIDS. It's like forcing people who were hit by napalm to commit a self-criticism for being attacked by napalm from, the Vietnamese people need to commit a self-criticism for America bombing them with napalm. You know what I mean? Because that's how this is a state attack, that Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown need to commit a self-criticism being murdered by the police. Like, no, this is an attack from white power. And we are not held accountable for any of this. It's them. It's them. It's them. It's them. It's them. Period. Blank point period. If you don't believe me, there was this white woman that was talking about how, there's trauma in the gay community because of what they experienced back in the 90s and the 80s with the HIV and AIDS, what do they call it? An epidemic. And, so there's trauma that they're going through of gay. And I was like, hold on, no. White gays are experiencing the trauma of what happened back in the 80s and 90s. We're still experiencing what's happening right now in the 80s and 90s. I lost a friend to that. I have family members who caught it at 15 years old. You know what I mean? Who, I don't like to say caught, who were infected by it at 15 years old, and not infected by the person, but attacked by white power. Mm-hmm. But, at 15 and all these kinds of things, and being asked to make sure to take their medication, all those kind of things, like a family member and seeing that. And so you're talking about what trauma, what past PTSD is what she explained. The PTSD is like, take the P out, ho. Like, no, we're experiencing that right now, and so just seeing that consistently and also understanding like, I lived it. And then Chairman really politicized, made me really understand it. Because you see all the trauma, you see all the isolation, you see the oppression, you see the poverty, you see what that does, and the horizontal violence that creates and all these kinds of things, and how, it pushes us because we are affected as well of the counterinsurgency by the 60s, right? So when we are looking for resources to be made we don't have Black-owned grocery stores to go to, or Black gas stations, or any of these things, because it's been taken away from our community. What's been put in there is this drug economy, and with the drug economy comes the sex work and all these kinds of things, which African GSMA people have to do just to survive. We have the sex work and stuff. And why is there sex work even available for us? Because the African body has been, fetishized to this point and objectified, and through slavery and being susceptible for white people to, because back in the day with the slave master, like he didn't whack off when he got horny. He went into the barracks of the slaves, of the Africans, and did what he needed to do. The white woman, she didn't need a vibrator or anything like that. Back then, living in such levels of poverty that are going to take $20, to give their body to a white person. You know what I mean? So all of these things are put on us. And so this is the existence that we have. And then on top of that, we're being gentrified out of communities. On top of that, we're being murdered by the police. On top of that, there's horizontal violence. And that's another thing, because these things are told to us in a different way. When an African trans woman is like murdered, right? They make it look like it's something wrong with the Black community. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. And it's like, well, why are the Black trans women being targeted so much? Because African people are being murdered, because African people are experiencing horizontal violence, period. Why we, like, an African woman is more likely to be murdered than a white woman? Duh, because African was colonized. African trans person is more likely to be murdered than a white trans person. Duh, because we're colonized. It's all around the board. African man, duh, because we're colonized. And that horizontal violence is on the onus of white power, not of African men, not of African toxic masculinity and all this BS. It's white power that have put African trans people into the position where they do not have the ability to govern ourselves, to have the ability to have power so we can dictate how our lives is going to look. That's why we are susceptible to all kinds of attacks, including horizontal ones. And the reason why that African man is attacking that African trans person is the same reason why the African man shot another African man yesterday for damn Jordans, is because this is a life that has been produced for him by white power. And it is the onus on white power, white power, white power, white power. And anytime we have a conversation about it, that we don't connect it to white power, that we don't connect it to colonialism, that is an attack on the African GSMA community, because you are not showing us the way to power. You're not showing us the way to being self-governance. You're not showing us the way to liberation. What you're showing us a way to do is to be a forever victim and to be angry at ourselves, be angry at our fathers, angry at our brothers, and attack each other and produce more horizontal violence. But now it's legitimized in the way of we're allowing the state to do the violence towards each other. You know what I mean? That making sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. So I was just saying that all to say that, what am I saying? Yeah. Yeah, because I just want to say that, and that's why, because some people are like, well, why are we attacking this whole like politic of toxic masculinity, or why are we attacking this whole thing of, or defending the Black man for these attacks and all these other kinds of things? And it's because because to sum it up that way is an attack on us. It is an attack on us. It is an attack on our ability to be a part of the revolution. And it's also, all you're saying is that you want us to side with the state to commit violence against other African and colonized people to what end? To what end? For us all to be in jail, or all to be 6 feet under because allowing the state to have to deal with everything, and we put is the Black man, then it comes to, is the Black man the white man of the Black community? No, the white man is the white man of the community. White power is the white power of all the communities, because as community has been defined for us is through, white power. So no, and anytime we sum it up any other way, all it is it's not fighting imperialism. It's not going against imperialism. It's forcing us to unite with it. It's forcing us to unite with it and to ignore the fact that that's why we're in this situation in the first place. Really want to appreciate that, Secretary General Ghazi. You addressed this question in your last statement of talking about the murders of African trans people and the police murders of gender and sexuality non-conforming Africans.
if you want to talk more about that. And also in regard to the movie Stonewall that came out a few years ago, it showed a white guy as throwing the first brick and being the hero of Stonewall. And I want to ask, what do you think is wrong with that picture, Uhuru?
Uhuru, yeah, we appreciate that question. I just think it's like, it's not surprising because the same thing done with like, you know, a Malcolm X picture when at the end he goes to Mecca and comes back and loves white people, you know, or of how they now, anytime an African person wants to resist, they tell us, oh, you're making Martin Luther King mad. You know, they murder our heroes and then they define our heroes in a way to win us against the trajectory that our heroes were fighting for. You know, and they do that all the time. They do that consistently all the time. So why wouldn't they do it in Stonewall? You know, why not? And, you know, you even have, when people even talk about the African trans people that fought against the police and stuff like that, they say they still connect it to, well, they made that fight and yeah, let's put them in the movie. But what are you saying? You're basically saying that they threw that brick or they fought against the state to assist white men to get married. You know, you don't tie it to understanding that it's a fight against colonial terror. It's a fight against the colonial state. It's a fight for the liberation of African and colonized people around the world. It's a fight against, you know, these attacks that have been put on African people consistently since we first met white power 600 years ago. You know, so that brick that African trans woman threw was a continuation of African people fighting against slavery 600 years ago. And that's how it has to be summed up. And that movie wasn't going to do that. No. So they might as well put that white man in there.
And the next question I have is, how do you see...
Oh, wait, hold on. Go ahead. But I did want to say that, you know, there's other continuations of that as well. Because even, like Comrade Mads was saying, like there's dancing, like the Vogue dancing and all these things. And you see, oh, this is queer dancing. No, that is African dancing. Ain't none of y'all moving like that until you met us, okay? That's African dancing. Even the way, you know, we perform and drag and all those kinds of things, that's African. Shout out to RuPaul. But that's African. And then like they take it and they strip the word African and black from it. And then they'll put POC and then they'll strip that. POC queer, they'll strip that and it'll just be queer. And it's like, no. You whites were not in the balls, you know, performing and learning and doing all these things to create resources for yourselves because you didn't need to. Okay, you're doing it now because it's popular. You're doing it now because it's on YouTube. You're doing it now because there's resources to be made out of it. You're doing it now because, you know, it's fanciful to you, it's fun to you. But this is survival for the majorities of African GSMA people. And now you're doing it. And as usual, when white people do it, it's more hailed and they get more resources for it and all those kind of things like Eminem and you're geniuses because now you can mimic, you know, something that African people had to bleed and sweat for, you know. And if you even look at these balls, and if people don't know what a ball is, basically it's a competition of different houses, which you can say like teams, I guess, of African, gender, sexually non-conforming Africans that we still do, but we would take like a room, an auditorium or whatever like that, and we would rent it out. And they used to rent it out around like starting at 2:30 a.m. at night or whatever. And then they would get out around 6 because the businesses did not want to rent out to us during daytime. They did not want people to see that they were renting out to, you know, the black freaks, you know, and stuff like that. So we would rent it out during these times where everybody would be asleep. So nobody else would be afraid to rent out from them or anything like that. We wouldn't slum down the place. So anyway, so it would happen at these really odd times at night, and they would do different performances. They would do different Vogue performances, which is the dance. They would do different dressing up as you know, realness, like who looks more like a woman, who looks more like a man, all these kinds of different competitions that they would make. And these were things that were designed to push the community into finding different avenues of resources, right? So it would show you how to present yourself as a straight man, a straight successful businessman, and so you could be able to do it when the lights come on, so you can get resources for yourself, all these kinds of things. And basically, whoever would win money. Everybody would bring like $20 or whatever, $50 just to be in that night. And then they would pool it. And, you know, so 800 will go to this winner, 600 will go to this winner. So people used to literally dance for their rent or dance for their next meal or perform for, you know, these are people that haven't eaten in days, eaten in weeks, that perform to get resources for themselves. You know what I mean? So this wasn't just sheer entertainment. This was a way of survival under colonialism, under capitalism that has wiped out, you know, this is the effects. And, you know, and balls came actually during the early 70s and late 60s. What happened then, y'all? Counterinsurgency, the wiping out of the African community, of African self-determination, you know, of African economic development. So now, because of that, it's this, because even before, we're not gonna get onto that. But anyways, so you had these balls, right? And now, because of YouTube, balls have been presented out more. People have been watching, and people in Europe want to learn about it. Now it's like, you know, the Juilliard wants to teach Vogue and all these other kinds of things. And of course, African colonized people who don't have the resources will go to teach, and they don't understand that this is what they call cultural appropriation or colonial looting, which what it really is, and taking this art from us. And now the white queer community wants to now claim it as theirs. You know what I mean? They want to now claim it as theirs. And then what does that mean for this little avenue that was created to get resources for this community? Like, what does that mean for that? And now you have a TV show about it called Pose or whatever. And it's such BS because it shows like it's this rainbow of all these people and the white people. White people did not come into balls until maybe mid-90s. And that was one of the trashy whites that, you know, lived in the black community, okay? Because they were so poor. You know, it really wasn't. Am I lying? It really wasn't. And now it's being put off as like, this is just, they've always been there, which is a lie. And again, this Pose thing is produced and directed by some white gay man that's going to make millions of dollars off of this. And of course, it doesn't connect it at all to liberation, the revolution, colonialism, how this is affected by, you know, gentrification and all these kinds of things. And it's just, but it happens, of course, it happens to this sector of the African community because it happens to the entire African community all the time. And the most beautiful thing I've ever seen of like, because it's always like we're showing this to try to be accepted and all this other kind of stuff, but nobody wants that. And what was so beautiful was the African People's Socialist Party plenary, where we had a Vogue performance, like a ball performance, and Chairman got on the mic and he was like, that's African. Like, that was African to me. And it was just this accepting roar of just love and clapping. And it was like a reintroduction to the African nation. And I just can't wait for this Congress and us to do it again and to welcome in and continue to welcome, you know, these sections of African nation that have been torn away and not be dragged into capitalism as this show Pose, or dragged into capitalism as labeling it as queer so it's susceptible to white people and all this other kind of stuff. So, and that's just like the continuation of the whole thing of Stonewall. It's just to white it. And you even have Stonewall Democrats who are now the vanguards of the Stonewall, you know, struggle, who do nothing but make sure Democrats are voted in and gentrification continues to happen and gay bars be built on top of African communities. Mm-hmm. Uhuru. Uhuru.
So I wanted to ask Secretary General Ghazi, how do you see the struggle of African liberation developing today with all of the various forces of the African community in the struggle?
So I just really see that during this time, you know, this like political awakeness and like, you know, the crisis of imperialism, as Chairman has defined it for us, to see all these African people, especially like my generation, really grasping for like political education, really grasping and searching for African internationalism, really struggling to try to get to resolve, and seeing even the conversations that are happening on social media, that are happening in the barbershops, that are happening in the corner stores, being political and struggling for, you know, real answers, to be on the right side of the questions and to struggle for freedom. You know, it's all to really get out of this crap that's been put onto us. and it's being exposed everywhere. You can't watch a football game without it. You can't look at The View without seeing it. You can't turn on your TV for 3 seconds without seeing it. You can't turn on your computer without seeing it. You can't go on social media. You can't scroll on Instagram without seeing, you know, this shit happening. You know, Africans struggling for, you know, dignity or anything in like stores, and a white woman, you know, adopting African children, put them in cages and treat them badly and mutilate them and all these kinds of things. And you're seeing it, and you're seeing all these kinds of things happening. And you're seeing that African gender, sexuality, non-conforming Africans are really struggling to find our place in this and to fight for it. But obviously, you know, the white ruling class and white liberals are just on their A game of really trying to win that sector to opportunism, to imperialism, to capitalism, you know, which undermines any hope of liberation of African people. But what they see is that the African People's Socialist Party, you know, the Uhuru movement, the Uhuru Solidarity movement, all these things are growing. And you do see a great number of Africans and white people who consider themselves before, you know, queer, coming into this movement, coming into political consciousness, being won to African internationalism, because we're tired of playing the game. We've been a part of these organizations, and we see that it's doing absolutely nothing. And there's no to what end other than to take down Trump. You know what I mean? And there's no real summations, or there's no real way for us to lead and see power in our hands. And that's what people are fighting for. And so no matter when we are talking about, you know, the struggles of African trans women, or the struggles of African same-gender loving people, and all of these things, that we are coming to an understanding that all of that is rooted in colonialism. All of that is rooted in imperialism that has to be overturned, and it has to be led by the leadership of the African working class. And when you look at Black Power Blueprint, that's exactly what you're seeing. You're seeing a future. You're seeing an end to us having to do sex work or all these other things to produce for ourselves. You're seeing us being able to produce a marketplace for ourselves. You're seeing us to be able to produce you know, a bakery and all these kinds of things. So when African trans and GSMA people come out of prisons because they did things to survive this horrific system, that we will have a place for us, that we don't not fall back in, or get pushed back in to these drug economies and sex work economies that lead us back to the prisons to make billions and trillions of dollars for the white ruling class. You know, that we will be pushed now into, you know, the Black Power Blueprint, that these anti-colonial economic development, you know, institutions that we can work in, that we can thrive in and create a life for ourselves, and know that we're not working at a Walmart that is destroying our community, or a McDonald's that's destroying our community, or anything like that, that people would call good jobs. We're redefining what even it means to have a good job, you know, redefining what it means to be, you know, upstanding citizen. An upstanding citizen to who? You know what I mean? This is how you are a working upstanding citizen to the African nation, is working with Black Power Blueprint, is building Black Power Blueprint. And that's why when African people are watching this, it is in our interest to donate, to give our resources to the Black Power Blueprint. And you know, we are in these churches where they ask for tithes, where they ask for 10%. We've been doing that for a long time now. And if them, listen, give 10% to Black Power Blueprint for 10 years and see where it's going to take you. It's going to take you a lot farther than, you know, these churches. Not even 10 years. Give it 10 months. Look what's happened in 10 months. Yeah. Look what has happened in the community. Look at the Aquaba Hall. Look at the institutions that are being built. Look at the knocking down of these buildings to build a marketplace. You know, and they talk about food deserts. There's such food deserts there. And then we are forced to eat at these Chinese stores and stuff like that are filled to the brim with all kinds of rats and infestations. And we know it's dirty. We know it's dirty, you know, but it's the only thing that we have to eat, you know, at that moment that we could get. We know that these corner stores are dirty with mold, but it's the only thing that we have to eat or to get, but no more. Those days are ending because of leadership of Deputy Chair Onizina Yeshatela. She, you know, saw the blueprint that Chairman laid out, an end to this shit, an end to these dirty markets, an end to these dirty stores that we have to feed our children with, an end to these moldy foods, an end to these products that are not good for our bodies, an end to that through the self-determination of the African working class and building of these marketplaces, building of these gardens. And now it's time for African people. We have to join it. We have to be a part of it. And, you know, as amazing and brilliant and strong and cadre the leadership of Deputy Chair Onizina Yeshatela is, Chairman always says it's the people that are the makers of history. So we have to join it. We have to not just donate. We have to make time to go there, to learn, to say, how do I bring this to my city? I want to bring Black Power Blueprint to my city, and to take accountability and say, what does it take? What does it take for me to do that? What does it take, Deputy Chair Nation Teller, to be under your leadership and do that for my city, where I'm at? Here is $5. Here is $10. And, you know, Marcus Garvey built this whole movement and bought 2 cruise ships off of African people, each donating $1. Donating $1. So we are demanding that of us as African people. You know, that was the 20s, $1 back in the 20s. Now $1 now with the money, you know, money change, it's up. So I would say $1 in the 20s. Maybe $40 now. $40 now, y'all think? I think that's $40. $40 if each African makes sure, you know, you donate your 40. You get your wife to donate your 40, or your gay lover to donate your 40, or your side chick to donate 40. You know what I mean? You get your weed man to donate 40. You get your pastor to donate, well, the pastor to donate 400. But you get everybody, you know, donate 40 to this, donate 40 to this, donate 40 to this, and build it. And some people are like, well, you know, what about where my city is? If you can't move to St. Louis, then move to St. Louis. But if you can't move to St. Louis, then build it where you at. But we have to make sure it's successful there so it can be successful everywhere. And we come into a city near you. If you believe in it should be in there, then join Black Power Blueprint. Go there, volunteer, learn how to build it where you need to be. But we have to grow this. It has to now burst and be bigger than ever. And we have to donate, African people. This is ours. We have to not just donate. We have to tune in every Tuesday. Make this a family event. We have to. And African GSMA people, we have an interest in this because this is ours, because this is part of a movement that allows us to lead, that demands us to lead, not allows us to lead, demands us to lead, demands all African people to lead and be a part of this and work in this. This is our future. Let's get out of being, you know, entertainment for white people. Let's get out. We are so much more than, you know, being makeup artists for people. We are so much more than that. Let's do that for our nation. Let's be makeup artists for our nation. Let's be hairdressers for our nation. Let's do that through the Black Power Blueprint. Let's build Black Power Blueprint hair salons. Let's build Black Power Blueprint, you know, makeup and all these kinds of things. Let's bring it back to us, you know. And Deputy Chair has this beautiful program with the Vanguard 7 lipstick and all these things. But once we tie it into the revolution, once we tie it into liberation, it becomes something that's not going to sustain us for a moment in time being, but something that's going to produce and reproduce for us forever, because this is forever. What we are building is forever, and we have to tie ourselves into it. It's time, and the people are the makers of history, and we are making history. When you look in the Black Power Blueprint video, you are seeing all types of African people. I ain't gonna spill nobody's tea, but you seeing African lesbians, you seeing African homosexuals, you seeing African trans people. I'm not telling you who's who, what. Watch it look real quick, girl. You don't see who it is. But anyways, but we are there. We are there, and we are part of it. We are laying down the brick foundation and all these other kinds of things. We are painting. We are building. We are being a part of it. We're giving political education. We're selling the Burning Spear newspaper. We're getting our community engaged. We're doing outreach. We're in the gardens. We're doing all of that, producing and reproducing for ourselves. And it is through the Black Power Blueprint. No other organization is doing it. They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. We know these organizations have been given millions and millions of dollars, and they don't even have a damn app for us. They haven't even produced damn glasses for us. They haven't produced phone cases. They haven't produced nothing for African people. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And we shouldn't even struggle with them and get them to do, because they don't want to do it, and we don't want their charity. Join what something that has been doing it before we were born, most of us. You know, join that and be in that. And that's what it's about. And it's not about fighting to get married. And it's not about fighting to get into bathrooms and stuff like that. F that. Let's create a system of our own. And guess what? You can use whichever bathroom you want in the Black Power Blueprint bathrooms. Okay? You don't have to wait for no legislation. Shit. So let's do that. Let's start to build our communities. Let's take back our communities and govern ourselves. Fuck what they say in the White House. Fuck what they say in their governments and all the other kind of stuff. This is what dual contending power looks like. This is what it looks like. We are doing it. We are doing it. And the only reason it's small now is because you haven't participated yet, and you're going to participate. I have an unending faith in African people. We are coming down the hordes. I can hear the footsteps now. Share it, share it, share it. I heard just now, each share is $35. We just said if African people each donate $40, it means so much and would build this thing like that so we can continue building this. This is what our children are demanding of us. You know, and through that, making sure this is successful, all your other words will be overturned. You don't have to worry about giving your son to these schools because we're building our own schools. We're doing it ourselves. We're doing it ourselves. This is the time. This is the way. And thank God. Thank God for Chairwoman Gazi for creating this and making sure that the avenue for African GSNAs was nice, clear, and lit up, that we get to walk into our true glory, to our true purpose, and be a part of this, and be a part of history. This is history. It's not happening anywhere but here. And there's a reason why this crowd is small, and you see other videos with thousands of people watching it. And what you see when you click on it? Foolishness. Foolishness that don't lead to answers. Foolishness that doesn't lead to anything that's bettering our lives. Foolishness that's not building our communities. But why is it done like that? Because we know who runs Facebook. We know who does that. But guess what? Nobody run your feet. So take your feet outside and organize for Black Power Blueprint. Knock on doors and ask your neighbor for $40, put it in your bank account and donate it to Black Power Blueprint. Have them watch this video and the other videos. Nothing is stopping you from organizing in your community. Nothing is stopping you. They can maybe stop us from the shares and downing, you know, our algorithms and all that other kind of stuff, but they can't stop you from going outside that door and waking up your community to this and telling them, watch this. We're going to watch it on my laptop. Come on, let's watch together. You know, we do that for all these other kinds of things. Let's do it for things that are in our interest. Let's do it for things that are going to build us. We've got to get creative. We got to, Chairman is demanding us as a people, not just as a party and as a movement, but he's leader of the African nation. So as a people, he's demanding us that it is time that we start to build relationships with each other face to face beyond these computers, right? So we take this so it can take us to the streets and build and to donate. And I'm saying this of my African GSNAs as well, because, you know, through this movement, we are reconnecting this nation. We are reconnecting this nation. You know, African trans women, African, you know, GSNA people, when you are out there telling and putting out, listen, this is for us as an African nation. We are building, like, get beyond all that. We have to get out of this white power thing, and doing that, it builds a connection. Because African people want to be free. We understand we are oppressed. Like Chairman said, revolution is natural to us. So when we see that, we see beyond that subjective crap. And we see, yeah, you are my brother. You are my sister. You are my African. And we do have to unite and get free. And then understanding that this politic, that this garbage of gay bashing and all the other kind of stuff is produced by white power and reproduced by the Black petty bourgeoisie to negate from their own onus and responsibility for continuing this oppression of African people. Uhuru.
We have two questions from Verita Burnett, an African woman supporter, who asks, what is GSNA and how to join?
All right. Well, GSNA is a term that the African People's Socialist Party created, and it's gender and sexuality non-conforming African. And so the whole thing, you can tell, you know, it's a term of resistance, a term of non-conforming, right? We're standing up, and the only thing when you say gender and sexually non-conforming African, the one thing you are identifying is African, African, beyond any of it, beyond your sexuality and your gender, it's African. And we have to be a liberated African people. And GSNA is a term for Africans that are gender and sexually non-conforming, but who also want to be free, who unite with socialism, who are African internationalists, And how you join is you go to apspuhuru.org and you join the African People's Socialist Party, apspuhuru.org, to join the African People's Socialist Party. And that is how you join the GSNA family, because GSNAs, we work. Okay, we work and we fight for liberation, and we fight for revolution, and we fight under the leadership of the African working class, and we fight to end white power. Okay, when we dance on the tomb of white power. Okay, and we are leaders. We are not just, you know, accessories. We are not these comical things, even though I'm very funny. We're not these, you know, comical side things or anything like that we have been defined as. We are leaders. We are revolutionaries. We are, you know, the vanguard. We are people that are going to bring about a future We have a future for African people and to liberate the entire world through the African Internationalist Revolution. So thank you so much for asking that. And the reason we had to create that, because that LGBTQIA thing was created to win African people and colonized people away, or not even away, against our own interest. Because when we see those rainbow flags, we think it's for us, and it's not. Those rainbow flags are tombs on the graves of Black communities. Those bars are violent towards us. Those bars call the police on us on a daily basis, okay? These white gay men and white trans people are just as violent and nasty towards us as any white people, because it's colonialism, right? And that's it. And anything, the reason why, you know, Caitlyn Jenner is able to transition is because Africa was attacked 600 years ago. Those resources that are jiggling in her chest are African people's. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru S.G. Ghazi, I know that you addressed the question of how the Black Power blueprint relates to the struggle.
I hope, you know, she looks good. You know, she's not my type of woman. She looks good. You know? Do your thing.
In terms of how the Black Power blueprint relates to the struggle of gender and sexuality non-conforming African people, I want to ask what is the future of a liberated Africa and the place of GSMA people in it?
Uhuru. Well, if you need to see what, you know, a liberated Africa is, or what that looks like, I would really struggle with you to go to St. Louis and go see the Black Power blueprint, go to the Uhuru House, talk to the community. And, you know, a lot of people in St. Louis, when they're like, oh, Gazi, you're in town and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, come to the Sunday rally, come to the, you know, the Uhuru House in St. Louis, come see the Black Power blueprint. And they're like, oh, okay, where it is. And I tell them where it is, what part of the community it is. Oh, child, y'all there? Oh, Lord, I don't know. Do I have to buy a bulletproof vest? Dang, you know, like, because it's the most deprived part of the community. And that's exactly where we need to be. That's exactly where we want to be, because we unite with the leadership of the African working class, and we unite with, that is where you're going to find revolution. That's where you're going to find the most dynamic sector of the African nation. That's where you're going to find the heroes and warriors that fought against, you know, the police during Ferguson. That's exactly where it is. That's where you're going to find the leadership. And that's where we have to be, to go to those communities. Because you know who knows they need to be there to crush the revolution, to crush the people, is the state. The state is there heavy. The state builds all kinds of, spy stations and all these kinds of things. They have all their militarized cars up in there. They have those sellout politicians there. The white power sends everything to the most deprived sectors of the African community to continue to smash on African people fighting for liberation, to smash on the African revolution. So that's exactly where we need to be, because that's exactly where the front lines is, to build that, to build self-determination right then and there. And, you know, to all those African people that say, you know, I'm scared, bring your ass, child, bring your ass, okay? Ain't nothing more softer than me, okay? So if I can be there, you can be there too. And we be there, we build, and everything like that. So if you want to see what the future is, go there. If you want to see what the future for Africa, the African nation looks like, meet Deputy Chair Onazene Shatella and see an African woman who is leading and running shit and building shit and is cadre and is an African revolutionary and is doing so many amazing, and, you know, she is the most important woman there is on this planet. Okay, she is doing things that no other woman is doing. You know what I mean? All women in general. Okay, there's no such thing. But, you know, she is the most important African woman leading this, you know. So you want to see what the future looks like? Look at her. Meet her. Because we don't see it. We don't see it everywhere else, because the African woman is being beaten on by imperialism, colonialism every day. But look what the revolution has birthed. Look what African internationalism has birthed. Look what the African working class has birthed. Look what the party has birthed in Deputy Chair Onazene. Look at the future in her. Look at Comrade Kunde Mwamvita if you want to see the future. You know, all these African, you know, I was just at the store recently and I saw one of the mothers of an African who was murdered by the police, you know, on the ground, just, you know, doing all kinds of things to self-medicate, you know, totally lost of any future of anything like that. And you don't see that in Kunde. You see Kunde leading. You see Kunde knowing and all these kinds of things, because that's what the revolution births, because Kunde is the future. Because Kunde is the future for African mothers that have lost their children to state violence, to horizontal violence, which is not this, not a place of hopelessness where the imperialism wants you to believe that. It wants to believe that there's no hope. She's found hope. She's tied into it. She is leading it. And she knows every day that she comes in here, every breath that she takes, it's a breath and day against imperialism, against capitalism, against colonialism, and that her child is living every day in this movement, and that what she is doing means everything to her child and all African children. That is the future. To see who Kunde was when we first met her, and to who she is now, it's just this amazing, vibrant, powerful warrior woman, one of the most important women on the face of the planet that I get to see on a daily basis. That's the future. Come see that. Come see that. Come be a part of that. Come see a movement where African GSMAs are in leadership mode, where I'm talking to African men who are like, a year ago, I would have never even talked to you. You know what I mean? I might have even beat your ass, but now I'm taking, leadership from you. I'm taking political education from you, Ghazi. You are my comrade. I got revolutionary love for you. That's the future. That's the future, to move us beyond that crap. The past is kicking your child out because they're gay. That's the past. The past is, downing the leadership of African women. That's the past. This is the future. This is the future, and it is coming into light every day, because every day people are joining the movement. Every day people are joining the party. Every day white people are joining these movements and coming into, USM and solidarity, because that is the future. Like it or not, that is the future. If you believe Trump is the future, you believe imperialism is the future, you believe Obama is the future, look at them. They look like silly wagging fish during this crisis of imperialism. They don't know what the hell to do. Obama's on his 8th vacation. Now he's writing freaking movies for Netflix. Yeah. Like, what the hell? Yeah. While African people are being murdered in the street, all this kind of thing, this is what you are doing. But this is exactly, I've been reading about the Russian Revolution and how Chairman lays it out, of how the bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie were living this life of grandeur, totally ignoring the fact, what they used to call the peasant problem. The peasant problem, which was the revolution, and all around them was revolution. They would go get a taxi and they would cry because, the taxi man called me comrade. Like, what the hell is going on? And the stuff that they were producing from the poetry, the paintings, everything, nothing was about revolution. They made sure of it, right? It was all about the medieval Russian times and all sorts of kind of stuff. Anything to stay away from talking about this thing that's going on. And it's the same thing that's happening right now. It's the same thing that's happening right now, is that the bourgeoisie and the petty, they're talking about, the economy's never been better. Have you ever seen the gas? Economy's never been better. Where? Have you seen unemployment? Where? Like, it's never been better. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You cannot look into these communities and see the pouring of homeless people, African and white people, and talk about the economy is doing great. It's all BS, and it's all BS because they want to live in this bubble and they think imperialism is forever. But that is the past. That is the past. That is the past. That is the past. So if you want to see the future, get you a Burning Spear newspaper, one where you add, if you can't afford a plane ticket, because I understand African people are colonized and we can't afford, traveling all the time. Get you a Burning Spear newspaper, read that and see the future and the reports that are coming out. Look at what's going on here. Go and look at what's going on in the Black Power Blueprint and all these things. Save up your money and come to the 7th Congress in October, and go to apsdwho.org to go sign up for the Congress. You'll see the tab for the Congress to come see the future. But it's not just good enough for us to see the future. You have to become a part of the future. And the more and more we become part of the future, the faster the future will come to us. Amen. Hallelujah. Uhuru.
Thank you, Secretary General Gazi of the African People's Socialist Party. Really an honor to have you on Black Power Blueprint Live. Really want to appreciate this interview and for laying out the significance of the Black Power Blueprint and of the African Revolution. And I really want to call on everyone, if you have not already, and if you have, you can go again to ucaring.com/Black Power Blueprint. Uhuru. So now I want you.
Just really quick. I just want to say something to everybody that's watching. Get creative. Get creative about putting this out. Get creative. Talk to your friends. Try to get on your local radio stations to talk about Black Power Blueprint. Try to get some space in the church at the announcements to talk about Black Power Blueprint. Go to the barbershops to talk about Black Power. I'm not talking to African and white people, anyone that's uniting with Black Power Blueprint. Get creative. It's beyond just the Tuesday. The Tuesday is the days we check in and we pump it up. But all the days between that, get creative with it. Make a can and put something around it and knock on the doors and tell us. I want to hear about what have you done. I want, questions are great. I love the questions, but tell us what you have done this week to raise resources for Black Power Blueprint. Did you have a potluck? Did you have a movie night? Did you go around knocking on doors? Did you go to a radio station? Did you go to an event? Did you go to the club and pass out little envelopes? What did you do? Did you perform, that night and said, all the money that I'm doing right now that y'all are going to donate or whatever, that goes to Black Power Blueprint? We've got to get creative. We got to get it beyond. It has to be part of the culture. It has to be part of the culture. We have to get it out. We have to get it on Twitter, everything. But we have to get creative. We have to. Because, when we do that, our goal will be, instead of 40,000, it'll be 4 million. We can do it. It's been done. It's done for these murderers of African people where they raised $2 million in less than 48 hours. George Zimmerman. It's been done for them, so we can do it. We just have to get creative with it. So, right now, when you're watching, get you a piece of paper and figure out 5 different ways you're going to raise resources for Black Power Blueprint, and then do them. And then next week, when we check in, I want to see, I just want to let y'all know this is what I did, because that is going to ignite the imagination of other people who are watching. And then it becomes all of our responsibilities to raise resources for the Black Power Blueprint, to raise resources for the Black future for the African nation and all people around the world. We see people raised money, millions of dollars for things that do not answer the question, do not end colonialism, do not end the oppression of African colonized people and all people around the world. This is our Garvey era. This is our Garvey era, okay? And I just want to thank Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshitela for taking, the revolution of the 60s, the revolution of the 20s, the revolution of all 600 years ago, and putting it, bam, in 2018 with this amazing, and it's beautiful. The building is beautiful. The detailing is beautiful. Even the way we're raising these resources, we got Maxville, everything is just beautiful and laid out, and it will be even more beautiful and something that your children can watch and be proud of. So please do more than just donate. Get creative and get into your communities. I know you can do it because we are doing it, and it is going to be amazing. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Awesome.
So I want to turn it over to Chair Jesse of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and Chairman Penny of the African People's Solidarity Committee. I know that we have had some donations and some statements made of solidarity. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Wow, what a powerful presentation.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you again to Gazi Kodzo, who is the Secretary General of the African People's Socialist Party. That was so passionate, but built on science, the science of African internationalism. And that was, it was really inspiring. And it's the world that I want to be part of. I want to, recognize that all white people owe reparations to African people, and that there are 2 Americas. I want to salute Comrade Mads also, again, for a very powerful presentation. And to just make it really clear to anybody that's watching, we're here, Jesse, myself, Comrade Jackson, we're here tonight as members of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And this is the organization of white people organized under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And we work under the leadership of the party, which represents the struggle of African people all over the world for liberation, for their homeland of Africa and the return of their stolen resources, as Ghazi has laid out so brilliantly. And the reason that we're under the leadership of the party, that we have to be under the leadership and we're mandated to go into the white community, is because that this system was built on the enslavement of African people. That's what built the wealth of the United States, of capitalism, of Europe. That's why there's 2 worlds out there. That's why white people can aspire to have wealth, have prosperity. That's why we have social wealth. That's why, we have houses that are passed down from generation to generation, or inheritances that come in through our parents, because that's why we have in our communities an average of $244,000 of assets and wealth versus in places like Boston, African people have $8 of assets and wealth, which is nothing, which is deep in, poverty based on this system that is built at their expense, and that all white people sit on this pedestal that we have raped, we have lynched, we have tortured, the state wasn't even needed, because we were out there terrorizing African people, and this is how we got our wealth. And we also participated in the genocide against the indigenous people. And they, say that, these romantic pioneers were, armed white people, settler colonizers who went out into the land of the indigenous people, killed them, murdered them, participated in the genocide, and stole the land, and just, built our own homes and futures on top of that. So I want to make that really clear that we are under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. We work in the white communities, and we fight for reparations to African people based on the social wealth and based on, our history. And that reparations is not really punitive. It's our liberation. It puts us in contact with the entire world. It puts us on the forward side of history, on the positive side of this planet. I don't want to be on white power. I don't want to be in the pedestal of white power and imperialism. I want to be on the side of African people. But it's just not all, it's not like, can't we all get along now? No, we can't. No, we can't. We have to return the stolen resources. And that's what this is about. And that's why we are working for, reparations and calling on people to give reparations. I want to salute Chairman Omali Shatella as well, because Chairman Omali Shatella also believed in white people, that white people could take this stand. When we were like, I don't think so, that he, struggled for it and raised us up and gave us the confidence to go out there and win other white people that, we can break from this hideous history that we have. We can jump off this pedestal. We don't have to commit suicide as so many white people are. We can join humanity. We can commit national suicide. We can say that, we're not Americans. We're not we don't identify with our own ruling class. We jump off that pedestal and stand in solidarity with African people, African working class and oppressed and colonized people around the world. That's the world that I want to be part of, the Africa, the liberated Africa that Ghazi described, So we have a lot of people to thank and to recognize who have given reparations tonight, and a lot of beautiful comments. So Jesse, Uhuru.
Uhuru, everyone, and I want to also thank Secretary General Gazi Kodzo for that extremely powerful, and Chairwoman Penny and Comrade Mads and Jackson, and everybody watching. We want to thank you for getting us to over the halfway mark towards our goal tonight, and we still need to raise $425 in the next 16 minutes.
I'm going to spend 50.
All right, there you go. 50. We have to raise $375 towards the Black Power Blueprint in the next 15 minutes and 26 seconds. So go to youcaring.com/Black Power Blueprint and make your contribution of reparations to the Black Power Blueprint right now. Go to youcaring.com/Black Power Blueprint. And we want to thank everybody who has paid reparations to this project tonight.
So many comrades tonight.
Don't remember the last person that we announced, but...
the last person was Bobby Wittenberg.
Bobby Wittenberg. Well, we have quite a few people joining Bobby Wittenberg tonight. We want to salute Robert Wood, who put in 50, Ali Ayello, who did 40. And we mentioned that Mads is the coordinator of the Reparations Challenge, and Ali Ayello recently took the Reparations Challenge and ran a half marathon and raised $1,000 towards the Black Power Blueprint. So salute to Comrade Ali, if I didn't say that. Yes, that was Ali who did that in Boston. Also want to shout out Kristen Forthen, who did $80 from Spokane. That's Kristen Forthen.
And they said no more white rights at the expense of African people.
Perfectly stated. We also want to salute Mara Ratu, $25, and Mara also left a comment. which is, I stand in material solidarity with African liberation by returning stolen resources to the African community for years of oppression and genocide committed in our name as white LGBTQIA people. White LGBTQIA solidarity with Black power. Uhuru.
And Johan Bedingfield, who gave $10 tonight in reparations. Salute to Comrade Johan. And Johan said, all contradictions that white people face rest on the primary parasitic contradiction of the colonial oppression of African people. Raising reparations under the leadership of African liberation will crush all contradictions caused by white power.
Right.
Uhuru.
That's right. Uhuru, Johan. We want to shout out also Comrade Mads, one of our guest speakers tonight, who put in $40 in reparations towards the Black Power Blueprint. Comrade Mads. And salute to a veteran of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the one and only Janice Kant, who put in $50 towards the Black Power Blueprint tonight. Salute.
Yes. And Mads said, genuine liberation of LGBTQIA and people. And all people lies in the destruction of a system built on the theft and genocide of African and colonized people. No pride in genocide.
And Comrade Janice Kant writes, no pride in genocide and colonialism. White, gay rights are at the expense of African people. Our future is under the leadership of the African Liberation Movement. Join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Support the Black Power Blueprint. Uhuru. Janice. All right.
We have Casey Mackey, comrade out in St. Louis, $10 tonight. And Casey says, the Black Power Blueprint allows us to see right now in a concrete way the world that so many of us want. A world where, as SG Ghazi Kodzo says, no one is oppressed for being different. Reparations are owed to the Black community, and this is the way. Uhuru.
Uhuru. We also have a $20 reparations payment from Ruby Gittleson, who's been an amazing donor to this Black Power Blueprint project. And the statement from Ruby says, thank you so much, SG Ghazi, for this powerful presentation. All white people owe reparations to the African community. Uhuru, Ruby, for setting that example. Janie Archie, who is out in St. Louis as well, and is a great member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, put in $10 tonight and said, thank you, Ghazi, for showing white LGBTQI folks during Pride Month the way forward through reparations to the African working class and the Black Power Blueprint starting today.
Uhuru.
That's right.
Uhuru. Allison Haney put in $50, and Allie is a leading member of the African People's Solidarity Committee under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, and a regular donor, regular payer of reparations to this program. And Allison says, Uhuru to comrades SG Ghazi and Mads, incredible analysis. Yes, all sectors of the white society live off the parasitic pedestal of African oppression. We all owe reparations so African people can build the revolution, which is all our liberation.
Beautiful. And shout out to Diane Tournay, amazing USM organizer in Gainesville, Florida, who put in $20 tonight. Uhuru, to Comrade Diane. And Marissa Laufer in Seattle, who is the West Coast regional organizer of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, who said, Uhuru to this amazing web conference, power to the Black Power Blueprint and African Revolution. I'm paying reparations today in honor of my brother Rudolph, who was kicked out of his house for being gay, colonized, and died of AIDS in 1992 alone. Wow. Uhuru. And,
salute to, Amanda Carlazzi, $20 tonight. Uhuru. And she's part of our team here, and she
keeping us updated.
She keeps us updated with all the donations of reparations. Robert Wood, again, another second donation tonight, $25. He says, don't blow your money on stupid consumer goods. Pay reparations.
All right. So the impulse buy. And we also want to, so we are at 355 minus 25. So we're at $330 left to raise in 10 minutes.
We're two-thirds of the way there.
We can do it. youcaring.com/Black Power Blueprint. And we have, do a little refresh here. We're addicted to the refresh button here. $50 more from Bobby Wittenberg.
One of the best repeat donors,
Yes.
Who's given reparations every single week. Comrade Bobby, we just salute you. We have so much respect for you. A former U.S. Marine who
Yes.
understands what it means to reject the U.S. military,
Yes.
the whole stand on the pedestal of the oppression of everybody else, rejected that,
Yes.
rejected his role in the military, and stands in solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party and the liberation of Africa and African people everywhere. That's the stand to take, and it's very powerful. So we're only $280 away from our goal. And tonight, and I know that we can do this.
We can do that.
We can. This is nothing. This is what people spend in the white community when they go out to dinner, or even go to the movies and get all that popcorn and everything. And it adds up. If you take your whole family, it's like $250.
Exactly.
So this is nothing, and we've seen a future here. We've seen a future here tonight. I just really want to salute again Gazi Kodzo and also Mads Ambrose out of Portland, just for taking this stand, for organizing out there, putting this out there, telling the truth, and bringing African internationalism, the point of view of the African working class, into all the sectors of the white society, challenging it and enabling the white society to be able to take an honest stand, a stand in solidarity with African people, to see our future. This whole thing of all these suicides that are going around, it's almost like an epidemic.
I know.
And indeed it is, because it's not just celebrities, it's all kinds of thousands and thousands of young white people are committing suicide. Middle-aged and all eras, all ages of people, and as well as drug addiction, heroin addiction, opioid addiction, methamphetamines, every possible kind of thing, alcoholism. It's all there rampant in the white community. And white people are not being sent to prison for that. That is African people who are being stuffed into the prisons for things that white people are never even arrested for. But why? Why is that happening? It is happening because white people do not see a future sitting on the pedestal and being the enemy, of the rest of the world, the rest of the planet, that white people want to turn loose their whiteness and join humanity, and, can't continue to live with this idea of what this system is, and the brutality and the murder that we see inside this country and all around the world in our name, and which most of us are totally complicit with. But that we don't need to commit suicide. We don't need to die through, drinking ourselves to death or an overdose of drugs. That there's a place for white people in this struggle. And the whole stand of reparations to African people is liberating. It lets us be happy, truly be happy, because then we're not connected to this whole question of racism and the myth of racism, which how can you ever get over racism? It's about the ideas in our heads. But this movement, the Uhuru movement, African People's Socialist Party, calls on white people to take a stand based on the fact of colonialism, the political and economic oppression of African people, and that we can stand in solidarity with the anti-colonial struggle of African people and indigenous people and the people on the planet Earth. And that is so freeing, that is so liberating. And, it's so powerful to see the Black Power blueprint that we have talked about tonight. Political and economic power in the hands of the African working class.
Absolutely. Uhuru, totally unite with that. And just want to appreciate Emma and Connor, who each put in $10.
All right.
As well as Jake Scott, who's a very beloved member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, who is in Seattle with Marissa Laufer tonight, and who will be paying reparations in $10 when they get paid on Thursday. So thank you to Jake Scott. So that means we're at 250 left, and we only have 5 minutes. So we need to raise $250 in the next 5 minutes. We can do this. When I say we, I mean everyone watching this right now who wants to see us make this goal of reparations to the Black Power blueprint, including Brian McClellan, who is in St. Louis as well.
All right.
Who says, salute to the African People's Socialist Party, who gives us the opportunity to join in material solidarity with African, indigenous, and all people oppressed by white power. Decolonize the future today.
All right.
Brian.
Brian, $20. That is powerful. I really salute you, Comrade Brian, out in St. Louis. Very, very exciting. And Emma and Connor, who I don't know if they're together in New York, but I think that Comrade Connor's out in New York as well.
Yes.
So,
and shout out to Jake Scott.
And Jake Scott, yes.
Getting a little refresh over here.
A little refresh. Okay, we're going to do that. A little refresh on the computer here. And we don't have...
And we have $80 more from Mads Ambrose.
Wow.
That means we're at, and Amanda might correct my math in a moment, but that means that we are at
180.
I think we're 160. $160 left in the next 3.5 minutes. We can do this. We can do it.
We can do the 160. That's, what is that? A visit to the white dentist?
It's a dental visit. It's 150.
150?
With Jake Scott's.
Oh, Jake Scott. We have 150? 150.
Okay. 150.
I mean, okay, what's 150? 150 is
a haircut.
Dinner for two. Yeah, a haircut.
One haircut.
A haircut, and definitely in San Francisco, a haircut.
Yeah. Or New York.
San Diego.
And New York, and it is a, I don't know, what, a pair of sneakers or something.
It is a pair of shoes, isn't it?
Definitely sneakers, a year's worth of Netflix.
A year's worth of Netflix.
Shout out to Emma, who is a new member out in St. Louis. Uhuru, Emma.
All right, $150. We can do this.
Yes, we can do it.
Social wealth. We just need to put that in and make our $1,000 tonight.
$350 donations. Let's get it done.
All right,
$350 donations. And if you're sitting there going, oh, I don't have $150, I only have $5. Donate that $5. Pay reparations. It will add up. Everybody watching right now, how many people do we have on right now? 22 people. If everybody puts in $4, we'll meet our goal. $4. If every single person right now goes in and puts in $4, less than the price of one double latte.
7. 20 people donate $7.
Okay, thank you.
With a bagel.
With a bagel, $7. If everybody puts in $7, 7 is the magic number. Go to youcaring.com/blackpowerblueprint.
Well, I'm going to put in another 25.
Okay. Yeah. And Lisa Watson put in a $25 as well and said, powerful program, unity through reparations. We're not done yet. So don't tune out. Yeah. So that means we have $100 left to go. $100 left to go. In 1 minute and 24 seconds.
$100.
youcaring.com/blackpowerblueprint.
And
two people at $50. 4 people at $25.
You can do it. Donate now. Donate now.
It's an investment in the future in which all human beings can live, nobody at the expense of anybody else. And I don't want to be part of this isolating, narcissistic society that we live in that is just building white people through the suffering of African people and everybody else. Look at what is happening. Look at the conditions described by Gazi Kodzo tonight. Look at what the U.S. is doing in Syria or to the Palestinian people or throughout Africa with AFRICOM. Look at the murder, the mayhem that the U.S. has created everywhere. Look at what it's doing to the people of Venezuela, to Cuba, trying to overturn their government, their socialist or social welfare society that they have created to benefit the impoverished working class there. And that they're treated as the enemies. They're treated as the criminals. And we sit back and just accept that. I don't want to accept that. I can't pass down this situation, this system to another generation. Mm-hmm. We have to do something. We have to take a stand, and we have to pay reparations to African people. That is the only future, actually, for the planet. And I just want to say that next week and Tuesday night on June 19th, we're going to have an amazing program straight from St. Louis called The History of Black St. Louis. And it's going to include going around to different areas. And also on June 26th, we're going to have housing as a human right. And that is going to be very powerful as well. Okay, we have somebody else who's put in tonight. Robert Wood
just got us to our goal, $100. lastly, we just got another $10 from Amanda Carlos. We're at $1,010. No need to stop there. Keep it going. Keep it going.
Unity grow! Thank you again, Gazi, Kodzo, Secretary General of the African People's Socialist Party, Mads, Ambrose, Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Portland, Oregon. This was powerful. We raised our goal, and it is unity through reparations.
And another 25 just came in from Mara Ratu, which raised $1,035.
And Gregory Pfister, 15. Oh my
Just keep it coming. Just keep going. Ucaring.com/Black Power Blueprint. Uhuru.